talking about why personal training sucks, Milo.
Got it.
That's what we're doing. He says while he seamlessly gets his notes up.
Yeah, seamlessly.
I know this is the issue with too many screens.
I've only got one screen. It's all right.
So no pedestrian, Milo. You should always have 3 screens in front of you. And we'll pop that there. So, does personal training suck, Milo? Is that true? I don't know where I heard this, but
I mean, I'm a little bit biased in this, but I'm biased based on the information I have, and I personally don't always think it's the best option for everybody. Yeah, I think, simple as, I think it's one of those which I think a lot of people see as inaccessible, and it's inaccessible for several reasons where I think we're going. And I think there's also, it's potentially not the long-term solution that people think it is.
I think that's probably the best refining point in this is it's probably down to time frame, right? Like, for multiple reasons. One just being costs. Like, realistically, personal training is not very sustainable long term, especially when sessions are upwards of 50 quid for an hour now. But also, I've seen a lot of dependence and arguably codependence occur in long-term personal training relationships where the client is reliant on something as simple as the personal trainer counting your reps, which, like, we can all count to 10, I'm pretty sure. But also we rely on there being someone else in the gym for us to do work, and that's very detrimental. Like, that's a big dependent relationship. Not to mention there's an inevitable bit of kind of codependence in that if the personal trainer is reliant on their personal training income and just one-to-one sessions alone, suddenly they don't want you to graduate them because that's their income. So you're kind of trapped in from both sides, I think.
Yeah, you've got to understand that there's different motivations. And I think just on that dependence thing as well, like, what happens if your personal trainer is ill for a week? What happens if your personal trainer goes on holiday for 2 weeks? Does that mean you suddenly don't train for 2 weeks? I think personal training can potentially help in a short-term situation, i.e. get you consistent because you have that accountability, you have that dependence, but it's not something that I think should be relied on long term, because it doesn't help you learn what you need to have long-term results. And I think also if you go into it thinking in 4 weeks I'm going to get results, yeah, you'll get some results, but you're only going to touch the surface of where you want to go, because to face it, most people's goals are going to take a minimum of 6 months to 12 months to achieve.
And then again, like, just to really hit on that dependence point, and if we're not independent through this process, we then can't maintain what we've achieved after that, 6, 12, 16 months. If we've achieved that in a dependent model, and then we remove the lanes on the bowling alley, or the what are the little wheels on the back of your bike, Milo?
Stabilizers.
Stabilizers.
Yeah.
We remove the stabilizers, and suddenly we're useless. We need to become independent throughout that process, so that when we have achieved our goal, we're able to maintain that and not just end up right back where we were.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one of those where we have that education piece where you will help people. First of all, we may be helping them with what weights to use, but in the long run, I want you to be able to understand how hard you can push yourself, and also what weights to use. When to
push hard, when to take it easy, how to best warm up specific to you, not based on like a random. Yeah, no, I agree with all that. Yeah. So dependence, it's expensive. I think another one is actually, despite the fact that it's personal training, it's personalized to you, I found it often to be quite inflexible, especially if you're working with a good sought after trainer, because you're then relying on, well, have I got time when that guy or girl has an hour spare free for me, if that makes sense?
Yeah, you're reliant on, they may have a space at 4 p.m. and if that doesn't work for you, or suddenly your schedule is a little bit inflexible because 1 week you have to pick up the kids and the other week your partner does, or however the situation, it suddenly makes it not possible, and you may be paying for this service and not being able to do it.
And ignoring the fact that you know, maybe all things are good for that 5 p.m. session, but then something happens in the middle of that day and actually you can no longer attend that session. And there's no way to adjust that on the day. That's just that session written off because you can't attend that time.
And you're probably not going to be able to, can we book this in session next day? No, because they may not have a availability the next day. And I think that's the other thing as well. It is that emphasis on exercise over the other things, because you think of what we've been talking about right now as exercise, and I think the perception is we'll do 3 sessions and we'll get results and something like that, and yes, you may get some results initially, but again, long-term results, there's got to be a lot more change lifestyle and nutrition wise.
So again, that and I think partially this is because of the expense, but the emphasis is like, I need to pay you in order to do this session. And actually, I think it could be better if people paid for consultations as well. And we saw value inside of that, even if it was inside of that same model, just so that we can have an hour to sit down and go, cool, let's review the things that are happening outside of the gym. Where's nutrition at the moment? Like, how's your sleep been? Are you staying adequately hydrated? Because when we take care of those things, again, that leads to the sustainability of this, because it's not just how hard can I kick my ass in the gym, it's how does this all fit into the bigger picture?
Yeah, and I think if your personal trainer doesn't ask these questions, they definitely don't have your best interests at heart. Because if they don't know if you're sleeping, how can they give you a workout dependent on your stress levels?
Yeah. And that's not to say they're evil, they just might not know. And like, to be fair, you should know. That's just.
And I think that comes on to, we're not trying to badmouth, but the quality of personal training service varies a lot.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously with no dog in this fight, Milo, is there a better way?
Maybe.
So yeah, I think like, so to anyone who doesn't know, we essentially do personal training in a different way. We've called it all kinds of names, but essentially it's semi-private, which is where you still work remotely. So through our application, you have an online connection to one of our coaches who's taking care of everything, but then you come into essentially quote unquote classes where there is a coach on the floor that gives you the tactile cueing and education on site that is required from personal training, but they're not there to hold your hand for the whole hour. There's 8 other people where you're kind of basically shooting the shit and having that nice little social environment while still having access to a coach.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those where the hand holding thing is an important thing, because as I said, hand holding works for a certain amount of time, but when true change happens, it's when you kind of use your intuition to be able to ask questions, make changes, and just be able to kind of guide yourself with just the coach there to help you to soundboard.
100%. I don't know if you do this, Milo, but one of my favorite things in this is that you'll see someone, so as a coach on that floor environment in the group, you'll see someone kind of starting to do something, and it might not quite be perfect, but you kind of hold yourself back to go, no, I'm gonna give them this. I'm gonna give them a moment just to see if they can suss this out. Mm. And many times they do. And then we can come up and go, hey, did you notice, like, let's reflect on what just occurred. Did you notice how you felt it here? And then you changed that position, you felt it here. That was awesome that you did that.
Yeah, I think that happens, frequently. And I think it's that us holding back, where you actually learn how to do the movement right yourself, suddenly ingrains it in your mind, as opposed to with personal training, when you might always wait for the personal trainer's cue to change to make your form right.
So I'm just saying, it's my job to not do my job. Okay, that's that's what I stand.
Yeah, because I think we always say, like, however long it is, we want people to be independent. We want people to use us when we need it, but in the long term, perhaps not.
100%. And I think probably a big one, or at least for a lot of people that I speak to, it's nice that it's probably about a third of the price on average, right?
Yeah, and I think you look at personal training, you may spend upwards of 50 quid for 3 sessions a week. That gets quite costly over a month. But then you've also got the other end, where you've got your gym membership, which you may pay between, 20 and 50 pounds, and you never use. And I think you've actually got a cost-effective way to actually make sure you get your training in and get that support through nutrition and lifestyle.
I mean, that's the biggest difference, is that obviously, again, we're biased on this, but we think consultations and conversation outside of the gym floor are the priority, really. Although we bring people in to do physical activity and exercise, actually how we start to talk about what's happening outside of the gym, what's happening with food, what's happening with hydration, recovery, stress management. That for me is the biggest thing, is that there's a space and a system to take care and work on that aspect.
Yeah, like think of it, you may spend 3 hours of a week in the gym, but there's also another 165 hours that you spend outside of the gym. What do you think is probably going to have a bigger impact on your health? The 3 hours you spend in the gym or the 165 hours you spend out of the gym?
Simple maths, Milo.
Yeah, it is simple, isn't it?
I think the final one for me, which is kind of a bit of a twofer, is that number one, obviously the classes offers way more flexibility. So you're not like, and don't get me wrong, inside of that, when it's busy, there still might be a limitation on when you can get into certain sessions, but it's rare because compared to like that person having time versus 8 spaces, there's obviously a lot more freedom or a lot more possibility for you to be flexible in, oh crap, last minute I can't make that 5 p.m, but I can easily change that to a 6 p.m.
Yeah, and I think it's we're basically just outlining just so many benefits here, where you first of all, you've got a semi-private session where you have a coach there to help you when you need it, and the emphasis on when you need it, because we find that most of the time people don't need that support all the time. You also get the ongoing kind of education and the independence, because I think it's important not just to know what we're doing, but also to understand why we're doing it. And then also on price, as you just mentioned, the flexibility. And then when you go to personal training, you might only just form a relationship with the personal trainer. Here you get to meet different people from all walks of life. And I think that's a big positive, because how many commercial gyms do you go into and you think everyone's looking at you, and you don't really talk to anybody? You go in, don't listen to anything, have your headphones in, and then walk out.
I think that like having a group of like-minded people and just getting to have that. I mean, number one, like post-COVID, it's nice to have that extra social space where you feel comfortable and safe. I think that's such a huge benefit for so many people, especially those who haven't gone back into the office. But also in building that and in getting to know other people in the gym, you no longer have that nervousness or that shyness or that lack of confidence in like, is everyone looking at me? Because people, they're not like these big scary people that you've never interacted with. You have, you say hello, you say goodbye at the end of each session, and that does a lot to take the pressure off. And you can kind of just ironically chill when you're exercising, but it's not a stressful thing to do. It's a place that you feel comfortable. You're surrounded by people that you enjoy hanging out with, and you're exercising.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where there's a lot of like-minded people, or people that were, when you joined, we're in a similar position to you. So they completely understand why you might feel a little bit nervous coming into a gym, because let's face it, gyms are scary.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a nice thing as well, to see people ahead of you, see people behind you. Like you can, it helps to visualize the fact that this is a journey, and we can kind of pick up tips and tricks from those ahead. We can offer advice to those below, or like, not as far down on that path. I think that's quite a nice thing to be a part of in that, because it makes it seem a little less daunting on you. You don't feel like you're alone in it.
Yeah.
Ugh, it was so deep. I was sick in my mouth.
So deep, wasn't it? Yeah. Ugh. So loads of value there.
I mean, I think we can bang on about that one, but I think, again, personal training, if we're talking like 4 weeks to pick up something very particular, cool, crack on. But like, if we're talking about like seeing serious behavior change, I think for the money, and I think for the way the system tends to operate, I don't think it's the one.
Nah, not at all. I just think there's just not the time or space to work on the things which are going to make the biggest difference to your health.
Yeah. We want something that's, number one, like highly accessible, as in like we can have a high, what I'd refer as like a high number of touch points. We get a lot of interaction from whatever that program or service is. It offers us a lot of flexibility, but also it's just somewhere where we enjoy being. There's a social element, and there's low pressure in that environment. Those are the things that, again, for me, all of this comes down to sustainability. That screams sustainability, as opposed to let's kick your ass for 4 weeks.
In a nutshell, yeah.
Perfect. We'll leave it there then, Milo, if you're happy.
Happy.
Perfect. Thank you everyone for joining us as usual. If you have any questions, be sure to drop them in the comments. Or again, as always, if there's anything that you want us to cover, pop it in the comment, drop me a message. We love to cover the topics that the questions that you guys are asking. Thank you, Milo, and I'll speak to you later.
See you next week.
Yeah.